For over 2,000 years, empires conquered China. Nomads rode in from the northern steppe. Warriors crossed deserts and mountains. Foreign dynasties seized the imperial throne. And yet, something remarkable happened. Instead of China becoming foreign, the conquerors became Chinese. How did this happen? How did one civilization repeatedly absorb outsiders and transform them into part of its own identity? If you enjoy deep, research-based documentaries on history and geopolitics, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's go back, not to modern China, but to the ancient foundations of Chinese civilization. To understand how China turns outsiders into Chinese, we must first ask a deeper question. What does it mean to be Chinese? Unlike many modern nation-states built around ethnicity alone, traditional Chinese identity was historically tied to civilization, not race. The concept of Huaxia in early Chinese history referred to a shared cultural system, language, writing, Confucian values, agricultural settlement, and bureaucratic governance. Those who adopted these norms could, over time, become part of the civilization. In other words, Chinese was not originally just a bloodline. It was a cultural category. This distinction becomes crucial in understanding what happened next. The first absorptions, steppe peoples and frontier tribes. During the Han Dynasty, China faced constant pressure from nomadic groups such as the Xiongnu. Some fought, some traded, some settled inside imperial borders. Over generations, many frontier groups adopted Chinese language, Confucian rituals, and agrarian lifestyles. The Northern Wei Dynasty, 4th-6th century, founded by the Tuoba clan of the Xianbei people, originally steppe nomads, gradually implemented policies encouraging intermarriage, adoption of Chinese surnames, and use of the Chinese writing system. By the end of the dynasty, their ruling elite had effectively become culturally Chinese. The process was not forced overnight. It was gradual, administrative, linguistic, and institutional. But what happens when conquerors take the imperial throne itself? In 1271, Kublai Khan established the Yuan Dynasty after conquering China. The Mongols ruled as foreign elites. They initially maintained separate legal categories for Mongols, Central Asians, Northern Chinese, and Southern Chinese. But they did not dismantle Chinese bureaucratic systems. They governed through them. They preserved Confucian administrative practices. They adopted Chinese court rituals. They ruled from Beijing as a Chinese-style imperial court. Within a few generations, Mongol rulers in China were functioning within the logic of Chinese imperial governance. The empire they conquered reshaped them. The Manchus, Sinicization and statecraft. In 1644, the Manchus entered Beijing and founded the Qing Dynasty. Like the Mongols, they were not ethnically Han Chinese. Yet the Qing would become one of the most successful dynasties in Chinese history. The Manchu rulers adopted Confucian ideology to legitimize rule. They preserved the imperial examination system. They maintained Chinese administrative institutions. At the same time, they retained elements of their own identity, language, banners, and military organization. This was not simple assimilation. It was strategic adaptation. The Qing became Chinese emperors while also expanding China's territorial boundaries into Tibet, Xinjiang, and Mongolia, shaping the borders of modern China. Over time, the Manchu ruling elite became embedded in Chinese culture, and after the dynasty fell in 1911, they were largely absorbed into broader Chinese society, the civilization state logic. Why does this pattern repeat? Because China historically operated less like a narrow ethnic nation and more like a civilization state. The imperial system offered something powerful, a prestigious written language, a respected bureaucratic examination system, a structured Confucian moral order, a vast agricultural economy, a centralized administrative model. Outsiders who ruled China discovered that governing such a large, complex society required adopting its institutional framework. To rule China was to become Chinese in governance style. And governance shapes identity. Modern era, nationalism, and integration. In the 20th century, the fall of the Qing and rise of modern nationalism redefined Chinese identity. The Republic of China, and later the People's Republic of China, promoted the idea of a multi-ethnic but unified Chinese nation. Today, the state officially recognizes 56 ethnic groups within a single national framework. The modern concept of Zhonghua Minzu refers to a shared national identity encompassing multiple ethnic backgrounds under one civilizational and political structure. The logic remains similar to the past. Diversity exists, but within a unifying civilizational narrative. Migration, language, and cultural gravity. Another key factor is demographic scale. China's massive population and agricultural base historically created strong cultural gravity. Migrants entering Chinese territory often found themselves immersed in Chinese language education, Confucian family structures, agricultural village systems, bureaucratic registration, shared literary canon over generations. Integration became normal. Assimilation was often social and administrative, not necessarily coercive. Language, marriage, schooling, and economic participation gradually aligned identities. China did not survive thousands of years simply through military strength. It endured through absorption. Foreign conquerors entered and adopted Chinese institutions. Frontier tribes settled and adopted Chinese language. Dynasties changed, but the civilizational core remained. This pattern reveals something fundamental. Chinese identity has historically been defined by participation in a civilizational system rather than strict ethnic exclusion. To govern China was to operate within its cultural framework. To live within it was often to adapt to its institutions. That does not mean the process was always peaceful or uniform. But over centuries, the result was clear. China repeatedly transformed outsiders into participants in its civilizational structure. In that sense, the resilience of Chinese civilization may lie not in resistance to outsiders, but in its ability to absorb them. And that ability has shaped not only China's past, but its modern national identity.